Hi, everybody. Thanks. I'm Charlie Tetrick. It's a real honor to kick things off today for the 4As. Before I start, I do want to do a quick shout out to Barkley. I know there's a lot of local people in the room today, but there's a lot of out-of-town guests. And what I will say to all of them, Kansas City has always had a really vibrant advertising community, and so many brands have found so much great talent here, and we're really, really proud of that as a city. And I'll tell you, too, that we've had a pretty impressive list of independent agencies, and Barkley is certainly the biggest and oldest and one of the finest here, so it's really great they gave us our house today to spend some time in. Topic for today is building sustained growth, and I will tell you, as a small business owner, that is just such a, serious topic is the best way to look at it. Our category is changing so dramatically every day. New medias are emerging. Audiences have never been more fractured. You know, we had a discussion last night at dinner about all the AI that's an onslaught right now, and we're not sure whether to embrace that or run screaming from it, but all of these things are on our face, and it's terribly important that we all figure out what growth for tomorrow actually looks like. So I've got a short time today. I'm going to do like 10 or 15 minutes, and I have a surprise guest who's not really a surprise. He's on the agenda. The surprise is he said yes. I mean, he's a busy guy, so glad Cliff's with us today. I thought to start off, a good use of talking about growth is if we take a minute and talk about our own markets, our own cities. I have always argued that if Kansas City is growing and thriving and it's in a vibrant community, that's going to bring great commerce to our city. Great commerce obviously brings the need for great communicators like all of us. And every professional in the room, I will tell you, no matter what level, no matter what you do, in what capacity for the agency, it is really important that you take the time to make sure that we're making Kansas City and your own region as strong as it can be. That is something that's a little bit of part of our secret sauce at Walz Tetrick. Our list of civic and charitable work is just as long as your arm. And I will tell you, we really push our staff in the community. We actually put PTO hours that we fund to make sure people are out doing things for the city and doing things that they're passionate about. So the spirit of all this is how do we build our markets and build our cities to be strong, because the tide's going to rise for everyone. With that as a little bit of a background, we're kind of shifting to the talk of the marketing of sports now. We've got, you'll see behind me if I'm not blocking it for everyone. We are indeed a sports town here in Kansas City. And our agency, I think we're starting our 12th season working with the Kansas City Royals. And I will tell you, it has been so much fun, every bit of it. And a lot of our early insights on marketing the Royals comes with this theme of let's tie it back to Kansas City. Baseball, like many other sports here, it's truly in our DNA. So we look at the Royals, it's like the plaza, it's like barbecue, it's like jazz, it's certainly sporting Kansas City. It's, the Chiefs, obviously, with all the success they're having. But if you live in this market, most likely you feel a little ownership to that team, especially when they're winning. It's a big thing that's there. So as you see some of the work that we've been doing over the years behind me now, you're going to see that we tried to make a lot of things tie that team to Kansas City. And I'll tell you kind of a funny little aside. When we first picked up the Royals account, and again, you got to go back 12 or 13 years now, we had all these ideas to really tie these two together and build the brand that way. But I will tell you, the Royals were really in a bad place. They hadn't made the playoffs in like years. I mean, they were talking about a slump. They were in a rough spot. So we had these ideas of doing a lot of civic, urban city work. We want to do interactive billboards. We wanted to wrap the streetcars. We want to paint buildings. We want to get street teams out. We had all these things we wanted to do. And the approval processes were just impossible. It was no, we don't wrap streetcars here, and no, we don't paint buildings here, and the mayor will hate it, and the city council won't approve it. I mean, everything was just forget about it. But you fast forward a couple years, some real magic happens when you win the World Series. And I will tell you, I think the mayor showed up with a bucket of paint, and he had the ladder, let's paint this one, get the cameras going. So that's when we really started to drag a lot of the Royals work to tie this whole city thing together. So really to move into the topic of this morning, we're going to shift from bats and gloves and move into shin guards and what they call boots in Europe. And I want to spend a minute talking about what will be the biggest sporting event in the history of sports. And so, yeah, you heard it right. The biggest sporting event in the history of all sports. Anybody want to guess it? Do we know? Well, my plant's up front. This is my first speech, yeah. World Cup soccer. The Super Bowl has like 120 million viewers that watch it. The World Cup is going to have 3.6 billion with a B. 3.6 billion people around the world are going to be watching it. World Cup is going to be in the summer of 2026. There are 11 host cities around the country that are going to be hosting games and hosting other countries to come and build their villages here and be a part of all the festivities that are there. So it is going to be just this amazing thing. And this for our city, and maybe back to my original point, this is this amazing opportunity to really market Kansas City, to really market this region. And I'll tell you, if we do it right, it's going to build this sustained growth for all of us. I'm telling you, everyone in this room is going to be affected by the World Cup when it comes. And it's also our chance to let the entire world see what we're doing here. So we've had an impact group, we call it, working on the World Cup for, I don't know, over a year now, probably a year and a half. And one of the first questions we asked ourselves was, well, why'd Kansas City get this? Most people knew, at least in kind of the soccer circles, you knew it was going to be LA, you knew it was going to be New York, it was going to be Miami, Houston, but, why Kansas City? And I think there's really some chatter on the world stage about that. I mean, we beat a lot of big cities out to have the honor to host this here. And to fast forward to the short answer, I'll tell you the pitch team and the RFP and all that went in blew them away. The team, and I was not on the team, to be clear. The team spent hundreds and hundreds of hours, and there was some real magic that it took to convince, FIFA that we were a real deal here in the Midwest. That was huge. Number two, I will tell you that our new airport was a massive shift in the tide with all that. We've got the newest, shiniest thing in the entire country right here, centrally located so the teams can, make their way around the country to the different games. I think that was huge. And the third thing that really people don't talk a lot about is we were truly the soccer capital of America. Who knew, right? That's not just a headline, and I'm going to prove that to you here in a minute. But the amount of things that we're doing on the soccer stage here are just really, truly incredible. So our impact group started to think through a lot of these things, and the concept came, we need to really make a lasting impact on Kansas City. We need to do something that is for the long term. And as you look at most sporting events, kind of the spirit of this insight, they really kind of come and go. So you can look at the World Series, which was like a big deal. And everyone was looking at our town, and it really put us on the map, and the Royals had that great run with all of that. But, the next week after the World Series, it's over. It's behind us. We had the honor of hosting the NFL draft here. I mean, how cool was that? But a couple of days of big activity, and then it's gone. Same with what happens with the Super Bowl. These things come and go. And we think there's some insight in there that through marketing, we can change all of that. We're trying to look at ways to look at this region and say this World Cup event, as big a deal as it's going to be, 3.6 billion people all looking at this little Kansas City in the Midwest. We want to develop programs that are going to propel this city for 10 years beyond the World Cup. We want people to be looking back at this city saying, it's really something special that we have here. So as we look at that, we can decide that Kansas City not only deserves to be a host, but Kansas City is truly a world-class city. Those of us that live here, we all know that, and this is kind of our chance to prove it. So as the World Cup starts to gear up speed and to see where it's all going to be laid out, what's our opportunity to take World Cup and turn it into world class? What really makes a true world-class city? And if you look this up, you're going to find 8 or 9 things that define world-class cities. And professional sports is certainly one of them. But I tell you what also is, it's fixing poverty. It's fixing unemployment. It's working on the homelessness issue, right? It's a robust healthcare system. It's a great education system. It's quick job placement. It's travel. It's tourism. There is a big list of things that define a world-class city, but moreover, it is a big list of really big things that needs to happen. So we took all that information and just kind of stepped back and said, okay, what are we going to do with all of this? And through the planning, in its simplest form, we decided that in 2026, we were throwing a big party in this town for 6 weeks in the summer of 20. This is a 6-week event, by the way. 2026, we're going to be throwing this giant party, and as we sit here today, we have 2 years to get our house ready. 2 years to get a lot of things fixed and on the right track to get ready for all these guests who are going to be coming to town with it. Now, it's clear that we're not going to solve all of the city's societal issues and these big things over the next 2 years. But I will tell you, as we're starting to plan this massive soccer event that's going to be happening here, we're going to be putting the absolute best of the best advocates from these 8 or 9 areas to attack it. So as we think we're starting to build things from a soccer perspective, we're going to start with healthcare experts. We're starting with crime fighters, starting with educators, with marketers. We're going to start this whole program by working on the things that are going to be happening to make this city better. And the whole plan is by 2026 to have the trend lines all going up. That's the idea. We benchmarked today. We're going to make 1 or 2 key decisions in 8 or 9 major areas to make this city better, and we're going to have everything moving in the positive direction. That's the story we want to tell. That's the brand we want to take out to the country, to the world, literally. And that, I think, is going to have this opportunity to put Kansas City in this place that says, we really deserve to have this, and we're something more special than you might think. The goal for 10 years after the World Cup is we're not going to be underestimated anymore. We're going to be a force in this country for everything else. And we're going to do all that under the platform of soccer. So here's a little inspiration for you to see what we're talking about.
Momentum. An unseen, undeniable, unstoppable force. Propelling us forward, driving growth, and spurring victory. Across Kansas City, you can feel the momentum around every corner. On the field, in the stands, in our bustling job market, our thriving creative community. Even in our parking lots. After all, tailgating was invented here. Nope, not in the parking lot before a Chiefs game, but on the wagons heading west on the Pioneer Trails. Hospitality is in our DNA. Hosting is part of our culture and our history. For more than 40 years, we've held the world's biggest barbecue competition. We've hosted the last dozen Big 12 basketball tournaments and more than 20 years of NASCAR races. In the last decade alone, we've hosted 2 World Series, 5 straight AFC Championship games, 3 ginormous championship parades, and the 2023 NFL Draft. We're in the midst of a $10 billion downtown transformation, and KCI is the newest international airport on the continent. Clearly, we're not flyover country anymore. We're a prime destination, a stopping point, a staying point, a growing, thriving, inspiring cultural magnet. Momentum has KC on the move. We're a city on the rise, a crown jewel smack dab in the center of the map, and the center of the soccer universe. Home to 2-time MLS champs Sporting KC and the KC Current, playing in the only stadium built exclusively for a women's team. But pro soccer is just the beginning. We're also home to the nation's largest youth soccer association and the U.S. Soccer National Coaches Training Center. Heck, by 2026, the KC region will have more U.S. soccer certified coaches per capita than anywhere. Oh, and speaking of 2026, Kansas City is hosting the World Cup, uniting the region taking center stage in the world's largest sporting event.
All right, the central cities. We have Kansas City.
America may know us for our burn ends, jazz music, and open-arm Midwestern hospitality. But the world is coming to KC because we don't just watch and play and coach soccer. We live and breathe and eat and drink and sleep soccer. That's why KC isn't just the heart of America. KC is the soccer capital of America.
Thanks. So, credit where credit was due. We got there with permission to visit KC, and I think MMG did a lot of work on that, a bunch of other people. That's kind of our internal hype piece on World Cup. So now I get to introduce Cliff to come and join us for some questions. I'll tell you, Cliff and I have been friends and partners on things for 25 years now. He's been a real mentor to me in my business. As we mentioned, he was the founder of Cerner, which remains one of the largest employers in the region. He brought Major League Soccer to Kansas City via Sporting Kansas City with his partnership group there. He serves on several prestigious MLS committees around the country, including the expansion teams, making more things happen in other markets as well. He's the founder of Enterprise KC, which we may have a minute or two to talk about, but that basically is incubating technology and companies all coming to Kansas City. And I'll tell you, if you look at a growth initiative in Kansas City, if you hear about things happening or companies moving here or those kind of things, dig deep enough and you're going to find his fingerprints on it. So between that and Cliff and his wife Bonnie, you're not going to find more civic people anywhere. So yeah, we affectionately call him the godfather of soccer in Kansas City. So anyhow, please, let's all welcome Cliff Illig to join us.
Please welcome Cliff Illig.
So how you doing? Are you busy?
No, nothing going on. Hi, everybody.
So we're going to do like about 25 minutes here talking about a few things. So, and I've got a list of questions. I think others will be coming in as well. Your reputation would probably be one as a tech entrepreneur and accounting before that. When did soccer show up in your world?
Well, let's see. And this is really, I love your theme, building for sustained growth. We started Cerner right at 1980, and we were an IT company that tackled healthcare, tackled the clinical side of healthcare. You don't need one?
I'll be loud. That works.
So we tackled the clinical side of healthcare and built what turned out to be a $7 billion a year company with 15,000 people here in Kansas City and 15,000 people kind of spread around the world. We spent our first really 25 years highly focused on just making our company successful. We did not show up a lot in the community. We did not do a lot of other things. We felt the best thing we could do for Kansas City and its sustained growth was to make Cerner successful. So it was 2006, we got a call from Lamar Hunt. You may recognize that name. Lamar is and his family are the owners of the Kansas City Chiefs. But Lamar also is, Neil and I used to call Lamar the greatest entrepreneur in sports. Because he founded the AFL, which became largely the AFC as part of the NFL. World Team Tennis, the Hunts, actually, very few people know this, but the Hunts still have a significant ownership in the Chicago Bulls. So heavily involved in sports. Lamar called, and in addition to the Chiefs, Lamar was the founder of, after the World Cup in '94, with Robert Kraft out of Boston, and Phil Anschutz, AEG, founded Major League Soccer. And it was part of the deal with FIFA to get the '94 World Cup, was that the U.S. had to commit to creating a major soccer league, a senior soccer league in this country, and Lamar and Bob and Phil took that on. In 2006, Lamar actually owned 3 teams. He owned Columbus, he owned Dallas, and he owned Kansas City. The league had established a directive that they were going to go to one owner, one team. Okay, so he needed to divest himself of teams. In addition, the Kansas City Wizards, is what they were called at the time, we were called at the time, did not draw well at Arrowhead. Arrowhead is 76,000 people, and even the lower deck at Arrowhead is 33,000 people. So for soccer games, even with a great crowd, it looked empty. And the league was not pleased with the way it looked and the draw, and we're seriously considering recommending to Lamar that he move the team out of Kansas City and move it to Philadelphia. And so he called Neil and I and said, I'd like to have dinner. And we met down at the Plaza at the Capitol Grill for dinner one night, and he made 4 points to us. The first point he made is that soccer is the world's game. And even out here in the flatlands of America, we're becoming much more global in our perspective. Number 2, the Hispanic demographic in this country is going to continue to drive demand for high-quality football, F-U-T-B-O-L, in this country as well as around the world. And then he made the point that as the video did, that we have a tremendous number of kids playing the game here in Kansas City, over 100,000 playing the game. And the way Lamar Hunt thought, those are all future season ticket holders. And it's kind of the way he was wired. But and again, the video, and Charlie suggests this, but his most compelling point to Neil and I was, Kansas City is a major league city in the minds of most of the rest of the country because of our major league sports franchises. And if we lose one of those, if we lose the Wizards, we become less major league. Neil and I left the dinner. We were standing outside waiting for our cars. And Neil said, are we going to do this? And I said, I don't think we've got a choice, Neil. And Lamar had said he'd work with us. He wasn't looking to make much money on the transfer of the team. And he offered to teach us sports because he quickly acknowledged that we knew nothing about sports or stadiums or fan experience or any of that. And Lamar, I'd followed Lamar around the country to Chiefs games and things over the years, and ended up with just a healthy respect for the way he really rolled up his sleeves and got involved in what was important to fans. So we ended up taking over the team in late 2006. And started on a journey that has really brought us to today, where Sporting Kansas City is readily recognized as one of the most significant and probably model franchises in Major League Soccer.
Okay, let's dive into that a little bit further. Why is Sporting a model franchise for all the expansion teams and everyone else?
Well, I think a lot of it started, one of the things that Lamar insisted on when we bought the team is that we would put the team into a soccer-specific stadium. Interestingly, Kansas City is the epicenter of sports architecture in the world. Okay, if you're going to build an arena or a stadium anywhere in the world, you will make a trip to Kansas City because of that sports architecture base that we have here. That all started in late 1960s, early 1970s, when Lamar and Ewing Kauffman, who was the founder of the Royals, got together and decided that, the game of football and the game of baseball are better played in buildings that were designed around the game. Because what they found was when you're at a football game and you're sitting aimed at home plate, that's really not a great experience. And it was after they committed to building what's now the Truman Sports Complex. There's a stadium for baseball and a stadium for NFL football. And once they did that, there was only one multi-purpose stadium built after that in the world, or in the U.S., which was Joe Robbie in Miami. So, and it was after that the architecture consortium that did the designs kind of split up and went in half a dozen different directions, and that's why we've got all these architecture firms here in Kansas City. So a big part of the model franchise thing is we dedicated ourselves to building a soccer-specific building here in Kansas City, working with the Kansas City architecture community, and we ended up taking a very unique approach. And it was not, again, everybody agreed we knew nothing about soccer, and we knew nothing about stadiums and fan experience. But we took a kind of the same approach we'd taken in our business and said, you know what? We're going to build the stadium around the fan experience. And to us, the fan experience, and we just knocked this experience stuff off from Disney. Okay, we unabashed in our focus on stealing from the way they do things. But we build everything around a show. There's a theme. We design it from the very beginning to the very end. We sweat the details. We push the people out front because ultimately it's about smiling faces. And then we throw in a few magic moments. And we're pretty well prepared to deal with the tragic moments when they pop up. That's our formula. And so we built our stadium, designed our stadium around that. Well, most everybody in our league will say when what we now call Children's Mercy Park came online in the middle of 2011, that it changed the way Major League Soccer looked at itself. All the new stadiums, Nashville, Cincinnati, Columbus, LAFC. LAFC is probably recognized as the best and significantly large soccer-specific stadium in the country, and you know they're on the USC campus in LA. And the reason they say that is because when you ask them, well, people ask them, how did you design this stadium to be as great as it is? And they said, frankly, we went to Kansas City and then we supersized it. And that's the way they went about it. So a big part of what made us successful was what we did with the stadium, this maniacal focus on the fan experience. We're big believers that, hey, we all want to increase engagement, right? It doesn't matter what we're doing. I will tell you that the physics of engagement absolutely dictate, if you want to improve engagement, you better improve the experience. And I can prove it by just lower the experience and see what happens to engagement.
Yeah, it's incredible. You know, when I first toured the stadium with Cliff all those years ago, he made the comment that a negative about going to any sports event is you go into the sports event and then you truck up to your seat. So you're walking away from the action, away from the activity there. So at Sporting, by his design, they excavated everything. Every fan that walks in a sporting park walks in on the ground level and gets to walk down towards the pitch. They get the first experience of this, I'm getting closer to the field with every step. So, okay, let's jump into FIFA. How'd you talk those guys into coming to Kansas City?
Well, let me do something and give you help dimension this. One thing about this whole World Cup deal, it is just big. And it is so big. I have trouble communicating to people how big it is and how big it's going to be. I'm going to run through here just a couple little, that's all right. A couple little facts for you. World Cup is, as Charlie says, is the largest sporting event on the planet. It is not the largest sporting event. It is the largest event that our planet has ever seen. And it'll be 4 to 5 weeks in the summer of 2026. Kansas City is the smallest of the 16 host cities. There are 11 in the U.S. There are 3 in Mexico and 2 in Canada. All except the Mexico cities are MLS cities, so that the league is very much tied into it. We are expecting between 400,000 and 500,000 visitors from across the Americas and from around the world to visit Kansas City for the World Cup. This will be the first World Cup in history that is built around 48 countries competing. 11 cities in the U.S., there's 3 on the West Coast, 3 on the East Coast, 2 in the Southeast with Miami and Atlanta, 2 in Texas, and then little old Kansas City out in the middle. To be selected as a World Cup city, Kansas City actually beat out Denver, Nashville, Cincinnati, Orlando, and Washington, D.C. This will be the first World Cup in history where the capital of the host country is not hosting matches, because Washington, D.C. lost out, and Baltimore together lost out to Kansas City in the final selection. There'll be a total of 104 matches, 72 in the group stage, and then 32 in the knockout rounds. The first match will be on June 12th, in 2026. The final will be on July 19th in New York that year. Amazingly, in February, they announced the game schedule for everything. Kansas City got 6 matches, which surprised everybody. In addition to the 6 matches, we got a quarterfinal match. Okay, and that's a really big deal because that quarterfinal match really puts us in the top 6 or 7 cities hosting the World Cup. So we're no longer just the bottom of the 16. We're now right up there with all the big cities hosting the most important matches. Based on the game schedule, FIFA is making, they're going to end up with about somewhere between 11 and 12 billion dollars worth of revenue to FIFA as a result. This is FIFA's show. Here in Kansas City, we're not confused about who we're working for in promoting the World Cup. We're working for FIFA, and there's a whole bunch of rules, and there was a whole bunch of work in winning the bid, and it was all built around FIFA's specs. But it's a very big challenge. And we've got a lot of work to do. We've got an Arrowhead. A stadium, 76,000 people. We're actually modifying it. Its football field is not wide enough for a soccer field, so we've got to take 12 rows out of the east side of the field. They're going to spend $40 million moving those 12 rows out, making the field wider, and then putting it back when it's all over. So that's a big part of it. Charlie mentioned the airport. That is a big part of it. And then what we're doing around Kansas City to make Kansas City a more hospitable, more host-worthy, all the things that we can do. And it's interesting, here in Kansas City, we have a thing called a state line that separates Kansas and Missouri. And we actually are working very hard to get 2 states to work together, 2 federal legislative delegations to work together to focus on how do we make Kansas City not just a great host, but really realize the significant potential for sustained impact over the long term.
Okay, so talking about Kansas City and some of the big vision stuff, how this propels us for 10 years after the World Cup, what do you think this opportunity is and what that really means for Kansas City?
Well, as our impact group is and worked very hard on, Charlie's a big part of that, a number of other of our key Kansas City, we call them executive champions, but they're people that run businesses here in Kansas City, architecture firms and IT firms and that sort of thing are all kind of rolled up our sleeves, aren't putting their shoulder to this thing together. We believe that the opportunity for us is to project a brand, and you saw elements of the brand in the video. And frankly, the brand of Kansas City is not just barbecue and jazz, okay, or fountains. It's Kansas City is a very vibrant city. If you look at some of the big growth stories, whether it was Austin or Nashville or on the East Coast, Kansas City is well poised to be kind of the next version of that. So a big part of what we got to project here is the opportunity, the potential. Kansas City is an incredibly entrepreneurial city. There's not a headquarters company in Kansas City that was not originally an entrepreneurial story. Hallmark Cards, H&R Block, it was Sprint at the time, now T-Mobile, Garmin. All those companies are great entrepreneurial stories. And they're all companies that grew up here. They're all companies that built their workforces here. And the big thing that drives people to Kansas City in support of those organizations as well as others that are cropping up is the lifestyle, is the cost of living, in Cerner, we hired probably 1,800 software engineers a year and brought them back to Kansas City. We could not find enough from the schools out in this part of the country. So we had to create supply chains, people supply chains, talent supply chains, the East Coast, the West Coast, bring them here. The interesting thing is, it was a little bit hard to get them to give up the beaches and the mountains and that stuff to come to Kansas City. Our beaches and mountains aren't all that impressive. Once we got them here, you cannot blow them out of here with a cannon. Okay, they love being here. They love raising their families here. They love building their careers here. That's the brand that we've got to be able to project out of Kansas City to what will end up being, Charlie said, 3.5 billion viewers. I think the number is now estimated to be somewhere between 6 and 8 billion viewers that will watch the World Cup from North America in 2026. So that's our opportunity. And the question will be, what is it we're going to project? What is the story that we're going to tell? I think the video does a pretty good job of representing some of that, but it's big, and it's a huge opportunity for us to do more.
So there's a lot of marketing and PR and advertising people in the room. It's early. Most of them are still sober. But what advice would you give the crowd about sustainable growth?
Well, we've always built our businesses, and I'm in addition to Cerner, I'm involved in probably 24 other early stage companies and the like, around the fundamental notion that the way you grow a business is you create value for your clients. You every day wake up worrying about how you create value for clients. That gets harder as you grow. And we found that to be really a big challenge at Cerner as we added countries, as we added products, as we added markets, and that sort of thing. I always described it as it's a surface of the sphere problem. All those things you add increase the diameter of the sphere. The crap you got to manage is on the surface. And as I think we all probably remember from geometry, there is a geometric relationship between the surface of the sphere and that radius or that diameter. That's the challenge that you have. The thing that holds it all together, whether you're building your culture, whether you're building your workforce, whatever it is, the thing that holds it all together is the need to focus on creating value for clients. And we found that if you do that really the growth part of the equation is not that hard.
We've got 3 or 4 minutes left. Are there questions from the crowd? How do we want to do that? Ash? Oh, gotcha.
Oh, bonus
We got all
time.
sorts of time. So how's the family?
Can we ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
Great. Thank you so much for that great discussion and for kicking us off. What do you see some of these initiatives that you talked about having lasting impact after the World Cup for Kansas City?
Well, I mean, one of the ones that Charlie kind of introduced the moniker and the motto that we run off of, the soccer capital of the U.S., the soccer capital of America. One of the things I hope that we're able to generate is demonstrate to the world that Kansas City is a soccer city. And so you may or may not know that the rest of the world, their fundamental season runs from August to May. And then they take the summer, they don't really take it off. To a large extent, they want to travel, and they travel to different parts, their teams travel to different parts of the world, and they do what are called international friendlies. And one of the things we plan to do is host international friendly soccer matches here in Kansas City for forever, okay? And we're working on our facilities to support that. There's only one soccer team in the world that has a winning record against Manchester United. Guess who? Sporting Kansas City. We played them once. Okay. Here in Kansas City, they had a bad game. We actually had a red card, and we're down a man, and we still beat them. This was when Sir Alex Ferguson was still coaching, and we had a dinner afterwards. He missed the dinner because he was having a prayer meeting with his team. But we want to be attractive, and we want international games to be played here. There's interestingly, Panasonic is putting a huge plant here for making batteries for EV vehicles. It's a $4 billion investment. It's 4 million square feet. It's 4,000 employees that's going in as we speak. Panasonic owns a soccer team in Japan, and they couldn't be more anxious to come over here and play our soccer team and have us go over there and play their soccer team. So we think that the economics of soccer and the visibility of soccer can be one of those sustaining elements.
What are some of the things you've learned about sports fans that can be applied to non-sports brands?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually have an early stage company that I call Fan 360 that does fan analytics and keeps track of fan bases and that kinds of things for sports organizations around the world, actually. But and we spend a lot of time on that topic. And again, the maxim we work off of is, hey, if you want to increase engagement, if you want more people to come to the games, if you want more people to buy things, whether it's merchandise or concessions or whatever it is, if you want more people to watch your broadcasts, okay, or subscribe to your streaming services, you better be focused on improving the experience. Okay, and that in some of those areas, it's not that easy. Okay, but we just at Sporting, we just added $15 million worth of brand new LED lighting and scoreboards and that stuff to our stadium. We are putting on, it's not quite as good as some of the NBA pre-games and that sort of thing, but we're, the purists will say, oh, we hate that stuff. You don't match that visual experiences up with soccer. It shouldn't have, well, guess what? The fans love it. Okay, so when you ask, well, what are you learning about fans? The fans of soccer, even though they may be Hispanic and very focused on the way the game's played in other countries and that sort of thing, they have no trouble at all relating to an experience that is more energizing, is more exciting, is louder, and engages them and gets them hyped up about what's going to happen in the match. So I think if I learned something about fans, soccer fans are really not that much different than fans in any other sport.
We have an audience question from a big soccer fan who wanted to know that had listened to Commissioner Gerber discuss expansion in a way that seems like he's open to never-ending MLS expansion. What is your take on expansion in MLS?
Well, I've been on the expansion committee of the Board of Governors of our league for really, I think, almost since we got involved. So I spent a lot of time with that. I spent a lot of time with the commissioner on that subject. We just added our 30th team. When we bought the Wizards from the Hunts in 2006, I think there were 12 teams in MLS, and now there are 30. The 30th team was signed this past year at San Diego, and San Diego paid $500 million for the franchise fee, for that team. I don't believe that expansion is never ending. I can see a 32-team league. I have trouble imagining a league that's much bigger than that. We've got a couple, 3 cities. The biggest one would be Phoenix. It's probably the largest city where we don't have an MLS team today. So there's always people wanting to suggest that their city ought to be the next city. Don's pretty darn good at sorting through that stuff. He's got a great team that does it, and I'm sure that if he finds the right match, he'll be back in front of our expansion committee suggesting at least one more team.
Charlie, a question for you. No big focus of your work is around building community. What channels do you think have really strong impact for community building?
I think our advice to all of our young people at the office, I can maybe answer it this way, is just get out there and get involved. Find some way to be a part of things. The city offers great programs. I went through the Centurion Leadership Training Program. There's countless boards, whether you're looking at your church, pets, cancer, I've been chairman of the board of the Boy Scouts, of the American Royal. We do work at the agency and countless other things. The real goal, I think, for anyone is to, A, get involved, find something you have a passion about, and when you get involved in those things, actually make a difference on those boards and really dig in and be a part of things. And I will tell you, and Cliff's a good example, we first met on a board 25 years ago that he was chairing, the Boy Scout board. And you know, he made it very clear right off the bat, this is a working board, and we're going to make a difference for what at the time was 17 or 18,000 young kids in the community, many of whom that is a father figure, amazing organization for them. So anyhow, roll up your sleeves, get busy, get involved. I mean, it's pretty easy to not do that, right? But if you want your career to excel, do that. If you want to find any personal satisfaction, do that. I'll tell you, a lot of the charitable work we do around the agency, it's just good for your soul to give back. And it's like planting Christmas trees, because 10 years from now, you're gonna know people everywhere, and it just really helps.
One more question for this session. What's your best piece of advice for building a business around entrepreneurship?
Here you go.
I don't think there's much question about it, okay? The key to building, whether it's an entrepreneurial enterprise, an early stage company, or something larger, the key is you have to plan on winning the people game, okay? And the key to winning the people game is, guess what? Get the best people, okay? And that is not, is straightforward as that sounds, it's not that easy. Okay, and so in every business I'm involved in, we spend a lot of time thinking about what we're going to do to win the people game, and get the best people, but then motivate them, make sure that we're building a culture that is supportive of them, and then as a practical matter, they've got to be rewarded. We want them to feel like they own the business along with the shareholders, and if you win the people game, you win.
Thank you.